Hello everyone, I'm the Storyteller, bringing you stories that draw you into the darkness and sink you into sleep. Please like, subscribe to the channel and share. Where are you at right now? Come on, wrap yourself in a blanket. Let your mind unwind. Old mansions hold secrets in their creaking bones, where shadows whisper truths you shouldn't know. The air grows heavy, mirrors watch with warped eyes. Got a creepy tale from a place like that? Share it below. Stay close, these walls have stories, and they're not all kind. The Blackwood mansion stood like a forgotten king, its stone walls swallowing the twilight, jagged spires clawing at the sky. I fumbled with the keys Mrs. Blackwood had sent, my breath fogging in the crisp autumn air, a chill crawling down my spine that wasn't just the cold. This place screamed Gothic novel, dark, heavy, wrong. I'd taken the house-sitting gig for quick cash, thinking it'd be a breeze to crash in a fancy estate for a week. But as I pushed the oak door open, its creak echoed like a warning through the cavernous foyer. "Hello?" I called, my voice tiny, swallowed by the ticking of a grandfather clock, its hands frozen at 3:17. Silence answered, thick and heavy, like the house was holding its breath. I shook it off, muttering, "Get it together, Sarah," as I lugged my suitcase up the grand staircase, the plush carpet muffling my steps. Mrs. Blackwood had said I'd be alone. No staff, no guests, just me and this beast of a house. The bedroom she'd assigned was bigger than my apartment, with a 4-poster bed draped in velvet, its wood carved with strange symbols, spirals and jagged lines, like something you'd see in a witch's grimoire. I unpacked fast, eager to explore before night swallowed the place whole. Room after room unfolded, a library stacked with leather-bound books, their titles in languages I couldn't read, a music room with a dusty grand piano, its keys yellowed like old teeth, a sunroom choked with exotic plants, their leaves curling toward me as if alive. This wasn't just old money, it was ancient, heavy with secrets. As dusk settled, I retreated to the kitchen, its modern appliances clashing with the vintage chandeliers, a jarring reminder I wasn't fully lost in time. I cooked pasta, the scrape of my fork against the plate too loud in the stillness. That night, sleep didn't come easy. The house groaned, its bones settling in ways my city apartment never did. Every creak had me bolting upright, heart hammering, until I remembered where I was. By dawn, I was more zombie than human, my eyes gritty from exhaustion. The next day, I worked remotely from the library, the Wi-Fi shockingly solid for a place this old. I tried to focus, but the house kept pulling at me. Those symbols on the bed, the way the mirrors seemed to watch, their glass faintly warped, my reflection always a beat too slow. Evening crept in, and I decided to run a bath, hoping the clawfoot tub's steaming water would melt my nerves. As I sank in, the house felt quieter, too quiet, the silence pressing against my skin. Then it came. A thud, sharp and deliberate, followed by footsteps, slow, heavy, moving across the floor above. My blood froze. I held my breath, straining to hear. There it was again, a measured tread, like someone trying not to be heard. "It's just the house," I whispered, but my voice shook, my gut screaming otherwise. I climbed out, hands trembling, and dressed in a rush, water pooling on the floor. The footsteps stopped, but now I heard something worse. Drawers opening, closing, a soft rustle, like someone searching. I pressed my ear to the bathroom door, heart pounding so loud I thought it'd give me away. The noises came from a spare bedroom down the hall, deliberate, not random. Panic clawed at my throat. My phone was in the bedroom, the landline downstairs, no way to call for help. I scanned the bathroom, desperate for a weapon, and grabbed a heavy crystal soap dish, its weight cold in my hand. It wasn't much, but it'd have to do. I eased the door open, the hallway dark, the chandelier's light dim, casting shadows that danced like spectres. The air was thick, smelling of dust and that metallic tang, sharper now, like blood. I crept toward the stairs, each step a prayer not to creak. The noises from the bedroom grew louder, rustling, a low hum, almost a chant, not words but vibrations, guttural, wrong. I froze at the staircase, my foot hovering over a board. It creaked, loud as a gunshot, and the bedroom went silent. My pulse roared in my ears. Then heavy footsteps, not sneaking anymore, coming fast. I bolted, taking the stairs 2 at a time, my breath ragged, the soap dish slippery in my grip. The front door was my only shot, but as I reached it, the lock wouldn't budge, the keys a jumbled mess in my shaking hands. A hand grabbed my shoulder, spinning me around. I swung the soap dish blind, felt it crack against something solid, heard a grunt of pain. The grip loosened, and I didn't look back. I ran for the kitchen, the back door my last hope. The kitchen was a black void, lit only by the microwave's faint glow, its clock blinking 3:17, same as that damn grandfather clock. I stumbled through, hands outstretched, hips slamming into the island, pain shooting through me. "Where's the fucking door?" I hissed, fingers brushing cold glass. I fumbled the handle, sweat making it slip, but it gave way, and I burst into the night, the damp lawn soaking my socks. The manicured grounds stretched endless, the tree line a dark wall ahead. I sprinted, lungs burning, the thud of footsteps behind me, heavy, relentless. A voice bellowed, "Stop!" deep and raw, spurring me faster into the woods. Branches whipped my face, roots snagging my feet, but fear kept me moving. The forest closed in, shadows twisting, the air thick with pine and that metallic tang, now mixed with something sour, like decay. I had no plan, just get away, my mind screaming, "If I stop, I'm dead." The footsteps were closer, a low growl weaving through them, not human, not animal, something else. I glanced back, saw nothing but darkness, but felt eyes, burning, watching. The ground dipped, and I tumbled down a slope, rolling, pain exploding in my ribs. I landed hard, gasping, the world spinning. Above, the footsteps paused, then started again, slower, deliberate, like a hunter savoring the chase. I dragged myself up, the forest a blur, my ankle throbbing, but I pushed on, driven by the certainty that stopping meant death. Lights flickered through the trees, a house. Relief hit, then dread as I realized it was the mansion, its spires looming like a trap. I'd run in a circle. For a second I froze, unsure, then saw a police car in the driveway, its lights a beacon. "Help!" I screamed, waving, my voice raw. The front door opened, a cop stepping out, followed by Mrs. Blackwood. "Sarah, dear, are you okay?" she called, rushing toward me, her face pale with worry. I collapsed, gasping, "There's someone in the house, an intruder. He chased me." Blackwood and the cop exchanged a look, her voice soft. "Sarah, there's no intruder. It's just Harold." A man appeared in the doorway, tall, greying, a bruise blooming on his cheek where I'd hit him. "Sorry for scaring you," he said, his voice deep, the same one from the woods. "I came back early from my trip. Didn't know you were here," Mrs. Blackwood explained. "Harold was looking for his glasses, trying not to wake you." The cop nodded. We got a call when he tripped the alarm. The adrenaline drained, leaving me shaky, my face burning with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry," I stammered, but Harold waved it off. "My fault." "Should have called ahead." Mrs. Blackwood wrapped an arm around me. "Come inside, you're trembling." We walked back, the cop trailing, and I forced a laugh, the terror seeming foolish now. It was just a mix-up, right? Harold's bruise, his sheepish grin, the cop's calm, it all fit. But as I stepped into the foyer, the air felt heavier. The grandfather clock still stuck at 3:17, its ticking louder like a heartbeat. That night I lay in bed, the Blackwoods' voices drifting through the walls, normal, mundane. But a splinter of doubt lodged in my gut. What if it wasn't just Harold? The symbols on the bed, glowing faintly now, pulsed in the dark, their lines crawling like veins. The mirrors reflected not just me, but something else, a shadow, too tall, too still, its eyes glinting silver. I pulled the covers higher, the house's groans no longer settling noises, but whispers, my name woven into their rhythm. "Sarah, stay." Sleep didn't come. The mansion too vast, too empty, too full of places for something to hide. I left the next day, apologizing again, but Mrs. Blackwood's smile was tight, Harold's eyes too knowing. Back in my apartment, I tried to forget, but the symbols haunted me, etched in my dreams, the mansion's chant, a constant hum. I found a mark on my wrist, faint like a spiral, warm to the touch, pulsing when I'm alone. Sometimes at night I hear footsteps, not in my apartment, but in my head, heavy, deliberate, searching. I keep my lights on, my doors locked, but it's no use. The mansion's shadow clings, its secrets alive, waiting. I fear it's not done with me, that one night I'll wake to find those silver eyes staring, and the house will claim me, forever its own. Dark forests hide deadly secrets. The Cascade Mountains swallowed me whole, their pines looming like silent giants, blotting out the sun. I'd come for a solo hike, craving the quiet only the wilderness could give, my boots crunching on needles, my pack heavy with gear. I'd grown up in the Pacific Northwest, knew these trails like my own veins, or so I thought. By noon, the path started fading, markers gone, my compass spinning like a drunk. "Stay calm, Jake," I muttered, my voice flat against the forest's hush. But the air felt wrong, thick with a sour tang, not just moss, but something chemical, biting my nose. A chill crawled up my neck, not from the breeze, but a feeling, eyes, watching, waiting. I pushed on, figuring I'd hit a landmark soon, but the trees tightened, their bark etched with faint scratches, spirals and jagged lines, like someone had carved them in a frenzy. My GPS flickered, screen glitching, showing coordinates that didn't make sense. "Piece of junk," I growled, shoving it in my pocket, but my gut twisted. The forest wasn't just vast, it was alive, guiding me somewhere I didn't want to go. I climbed a ridge, hoping for a view, my thighs burning, rationing my water in case I couldn't find a stream. At the top, I froze. Voices, low, rough, not hikers, but something meaner, punctuated by metal clanging, like tools on steel. I crouched behind a boulder, heart hammering, and peered into a clearing below. 3 men, scruffy, in dirty jackets, moved around a makeshift setup. Plastic jugs, tubing, propane tanks, the kind of shit you see in crime shows. A meth lab, right here, deep in the wilderness. My breath caught, the chemical stench stronger now, burning my throat. One guy measured white powder, another stirred a bubbling pot, the third scanning the trees, a rifle slung over his shoulder. Their faces were hard, eyes cold, like men who'd killed to keep their secret. I needed to get out, fast, but my pack snagged a branch, the snap loud as a gunshot in the still air. Their heads whipped up, the rifle guy's gaze locking on my ridge. "What was that?" he growled, voice like gravel. "Just a deer," another said, but his hand went to a knife at his belt. I held my breath, muscles locked, praying they'd buy it. The leader, a bear of a man with a scarred cheek, squinted into the trees. "Check it," he barked, and the rifle guy started toward me, his boots crunching. Panic clawed my chest. I backed away, slow, careful, but my foot hit a twig. Crack! The sound was a death knell. "Someone's out there!" the leader roared, and the rifle swung up, its barrel glinting. I bolted, branches slashing my face, my pack bouncing hard. The forest turned traitor, roots snagging my boots, pines closing in like a cage. Shouts echoed behind me, heavy footsteps pounding, their voices a snarl. "Find him!" My lungs burned, my legs screamed, but fear was rocket fuel, pushing me deeper into the maze. I risked a glance back. Shadows moved too fast, their flashlights slicing the dusk, beams grazing my heels. The chemical smell clung, mixed with something older, like rot, and a low hum vibrated the air, not from them, but the forest itself, a chant I couldn't place, whispering my name. Jake. Run. The trail was gone, the trees a blur, their scratched symbols glowing faintly now, sickly green, like they were waking up. I tripped, sprawling over a root, my hands scraping dirt, and saw it, a stone, half buried, carved with the same spirals, warm to the touch, pulsing under my fingers. Visions flashed, hooded figures, blood on bark, a fire that didn't burn right. I yanked my hand back, gasping, the hum louder, the footsteps closer. "He's here!" a voice bellowed, not 20 yards back. I scrambled up, the forest twisting, paths vanishing, as if it wanted me caught. I dove behind a fallen log, heart slamming, the men's beams sweeping inches from my face. Their voices were sharp, angry, but something else cut through. A growl, low, guttural, not theirs. The forest went quiet, even their steps pausing, like they felt it too. I didn't wait to find out what it was. I ran, the hum a roar now, the symbols glow chasing me, the air thick with that sour rot. The men's shouts returned, but they sounded different, rattled, like they weren't just hunting me anymore. The forest was playing its own game, and we were all its prey. I ran blind, the forest a labyrinth, its trees bending like they were closing ranks. My ankle throbbed from the fall, my lungs burned, but stopping wasn't an option. The men's flashlights danced behind me, their shouts jagged, laced with panic now. "Where'd he go?" one yelled, voice cracking. Another answered, "Something's out here, man!" The growl came again, deeper, vibrating in my chest, not from them but everywhere, like the forest itself was snarling. The hum swelled, the carved symbols on the trees flaring brighter, their green light pulsing in time with my heartbeat. I tripped again, my hands hitting dirt, and felt it, a faint tremor, like the ground was alive, whispering, "Jake, stay." I pushed up, dodging a beam that grazed my shoulder, the men closer now, their boots pounding. A shot rang out, the crack splitting the night, a tree splintering feet from my head. "Fuck this!" one screamed, but the leader roared, "He's seen us!" "Get him!" My legs were lead, my breath ragged, but I kept moving, the forest a blur of claws and shadows. The symbols glowed everywhere now, on rocks, roots, even the air, their spirals twisting like eyes, watching, guiding me deeper. I stumbled into a clearing, the chemical stench choking, and saw it, a shack, half hidden by vines, its windows dark but flickering with a sickly light, like a fire that didn't belong. The lab was there, jugs and tubes scattered, but something was off. The ground was etched with symbols, same as the trees, circling the shack like a ritual. A fire pit smouldered, its smoke curling unnatural, forming shapes, faces, hands that vanished when I blinked. The hum was deafening, the growl rolling through the trees, and I knew this wasn't just a meth lab. Something older was here, something the men had stirred up. Their shouts were frantic now, not just chasing me, but running from something else. A flashlight beam swung wild, catching a shadow, too tall, too thin, moving wrong, its eyes glinting silver, not human. I dove into the shack, the door hanging loose, the stench inside, a punch to the gut. Jugs lined the walls, but so did bones, small, scattered, not animal. My stomach lurched. A table held papers, scrawled with symbols and words I couldn't read, stained with something dark, like blood. The men's footsteps stopped outside, their voices hushed, one whispering, "It's back." I grabbed a rusted pipe from the floor, my hands slick with sweat, and crouched behind a crate. The door creaked, a silhouette filling it, not the men, but that shadow, its silver eyes locking on me, its growl a chant. Join, feed. I swung the pipe, not at it, but the crate, toppling it, chemicals spilling, the stench blinding. The shadow screeched, not human, and I ran, bursting through a back window, glass cutting my arms. The forest was chaos. Shots rang out, men screaming, not at me, but something else. I didn't look back, the hum a roar, the symbols glow, chasing me, the ground trembling like it was waking. A road appeared, asphalt glinting under moonlight, and I sprinted, legs burning until headlights pierced the dark. I waved, screaming, and a truck screeched to a halt, an old man staring, shocked. "Help!" I gasped, collapsing against his door. He drove me to a gas station, the neon sign a lifeline. I babbled my story, lab, men, shadow, but he just nodded, muttering, "Those woods ain't right." Cops came, took my statement, found the lab abandoned, chemicals and bones scattered, no men, no shadow. They said the men must have fled, but I knew better. The forest had taken them, or something in it had. I went home, swore off hiking, but the hum follows me, faint in my dreams, the symbols carved behind my eyes. I found a mark on my palm, a spiral, warm, pulsing when I'm alone. Sometimes at night I hear it, a growl, not outside, but inside, my name in its teeth. Jake. I keep my curtains drawn, my doors locked, but it's no use. The forest's shadow clings, its secrets alive, waiting. I see those silver eyes in mirrors, in crowds, always watching. The cops never went back to that clearing, and I don't blame them. Something's out there, older than the men, older than the trees, and it knows me now. I fear one night I'll wake to find it standing over me, and the forest will claim what it's owed. Empty malls conceal sinister shadows. The Westfield Mall was a ghost at night, its corridors stretching like veins under flickering fluorescent lights, the hum of dying bulbs a constant drone. I slouched in the security office, the monitors casting a pale glow over my coffee mug, the clock ticking past midnight. 3 years as a night guard, and I'd gotten used to the quiet, the way the mall seemed to breathe when the shoppers were gone. But tonight, something felt off. The air was heavy, tinged with a sour tang, not just cleaner fluid, but something metallic, like rust. My name's Mike, and I'm no hero, just a guy paying bills. But that night, my gut was screaming trouble, and I should have listened. I scanned the screens, the empty storefronts staring back, mannequins frozen with blank eyes that always gave me the creeps. The food court was dark, the atrium's fountains silent, but a shadow flickered on one feed, too quick, too deliberate. I leaned in, heart kicking up, and rewound the footage. There, a figure, darting past the electronics store, too fast to make out. "Shit," I muttered, grabbing my flashlight and the heavy wrench I kept for emergencies. Could be a glitch, a trick of the light, but my skin prickled, the mall's hum louder now, almost a whisper, my name woven in. Mike, watch. I stepped into the corridor, my boots echoing on the tiles, the lights buzzing like angry wasps. The mall was a maze at night, every shadow deeper, every store a hiding spot. I'd never admit it, but those walks always spooked me. Mannequins seemed to turn, mirrors reflected things that weren't there. I headed for the second floor, where the atrium's fountain loomed, its water still, reflecting the flickering lights. A scrape cut through the silence, metal on metal, sharp and deliberate, coming from the electronics store. I froze, flashlight sweeping, catching glints on the walls, faint scratches, spirals and jagged lines carved into the paint, glowing faintly, like they'd been waiting to be seen. "Hello?" I called, my voice bouncing off the tiles, sounding weak. No answer, just another scrape, louder, closer. My pulse hammered, the sour tang sharper now, mixed with something rotten, like meat left too long. I crept toward the store, its security gate half open, a gap at the bottom just big enough to crawl through. Just pipes, I told myself, but my hand tightened on the wrench, my flashlight shaking. The store was pitch black, TVs and consoles looming like tombstones, their screens reflecting my beam, and something else, a shadow, too tall, moving wrong. The whispers came again, not from the store, but everywhere, low, guttural. "Mike, see?" I ducked under the gate, wincing as it creaked, the noise a beacon in the dark. Inside, the air was thick, the metallic stench choking, and those symbols were here too, etched on the walls, pulsing with a sickly green light. A crash echoed from the back, then another, closer, deliberate, like someone, or something, was toying with me. "Security!" I shouted, voice steadier than I felt. "Show yourself!" Silence, then a low chuckle, not human, layered with voices, vibrating in my skull. My flashlight caught movement, a figure darting behind a display, too fast, too thin, its eyes glinting silver, not reflecting, but glowing. I backed up, heart slamming, my wrench raised like it'd do any good. Another crash, and the store's lights flickered on, blinding me. I blinked, vision clearing, and there they were. 3 men, dressed in black, faces hidden by ski masks, one with a crowbar, another with a knife, the third with a gun. "Well, well," the gunman said, his voice muffled, cold. "Got ourselves a hero." I raised my wrench, trying to look tough, but my knees were jelly. "You're trespassing," I said, voice cracking. "Leave now, or I call the cops." They laughed, a sound that chilled my blood, the symbol's glow flaring behind them, like the mall itself was in on it. They spread out, circling, the gunman's eyes locked on me, but something else moved in the shadows, That thin figure, its silver eyes watching, not them, but me. The whispers swelled, a chant now. Mike, run. I didn't think. I bolted, knocking over a display, laptops crashing, slowing them down. Their shouts followed, boots pounding, a shot ringing out, the bullet grazing a shelf inches from my head. I slid under the gate, scrambling to my feet, the mall a blur of tiles and shadows, the symbols glowing everywhere now, guiding me, trapping me, as the men's voices echoed, "He's dead!" I sprinted through the atrium, the fountain's reflection twisting, showing not my face, but theirs, those silver eyes staring up from the water. My lungs burned, my boots slipping on the tiles, the men's shouts close, their flashlights slashing the dark. I veered into a service corridor, the door slamming behind me, the narrow hallway a tomb of concrete and flickering emergency lights. The symbols were here too, carved into the walls, pulsing green, the metallic stench now mixed with rot, like something had died and never left. The whispers roared, not just in my head, but in the air. Mike, join. I ran, taking random turns, the corridor a maze, doors locked, paths dead-ending. A shot echoed, the bullet ricocheting off a pipe, steam hissing, scalding my arm. "Nowhere to run, asshole," the gunman snarled, his voice too close. I dove into a stairwell, descending to the basement, the mall's guts, generators, HVAC units, water heaters, roaring like a beast. The noise drowned their steps, but not the growl, low, guttural, rolling through the walls, not from the men, but something else, something older. I crouched behind a boiler, heart hammering, the symbols' glow seeping through the concrete, their spirals crawling like veins. A flashlight beam swept inches from my face, one of them searching, his breath ragged, muttering, "Where's he gone?" I held my breath, the wrench slick in my hand, the growl louder now, vibrating in my chest. The beam moved on, but the air shifted, colder, heavier, the rot stench choking. I peeked out. Nothing, just shadows, but the shadows moved, too tall, too thin, silver eyes glinting in the dark. A scream cut through, not mine, one of the men, raw, terrified, followed by a wet crunch. Then silence. The whispers laughed, a chorus. "Mike, stay!" I bolted, the basement a labyrinth, pipes hissing, lights flickering, the symbols everywhere, pulsing faster, like a heartbeat. Another scream, another man down, the gunman's voice now, panicked. "What the fuck is that?" A shot rang out, then nothing, just the growl, closer, its claws scraping concrete. I found a stairwell, climbing two at a time, my arm burning, my legs jelly. The main lobby was ahead, the security office my only shot, its phone could reach the cops. I burst into the atrium, the fountain's water rippling, reflecting those eyes, not in the water, but behind me. I sprinted for the office, but a figure stepped out. The gunman, mask torn, blood on his face, eyes wild. "You!" he snarled, raising the gun. I swung the wrench, catching his wrist, the gun skidding across the tiles. He lunged, tackling me, his fists slamming my ribs. We grappled, rolling, my hand finding the wrench, swinging blind, cracking his jaw. He slumped, groaning, but the growl came again, not from him, but the shadows, the thin figure looming, its claws glinting. I scrambled up, the exit across the lobby, freedom in sight. The door was locked, my keys shaking in my hand, the growl inches away, the symbols' glow blinding. "Turn, damn it!" I hissed, the lock clicking just as claws scraped the tiles behind me. I yanked it open, bursting into the night, the cold air a shock, the parking lot empty under streetlights. I ran, not looking back, the growl fading, the whispers chasing. Mike. Always. I hit the 24-hour diner across the street, collapsing inside, gasping, "Call the cops!" The waitress dialed 911, her eyes wide as I babbled about men, guns, shadows. Cops swarmed the mall, found the gunman unconscious, the others gone. No bodies, just blood. Too much for one man. They called it a robbery gone wrong, said the others must have fled, but I saw their faces, heard their screams. The symbols were gone, the walls clean, like they'd never been. I quit the next day, couldn't face those corridors again. But the hum follows me, faint in my dreams, the symbols etched in my mind, a spiral on my palm, warm, pulsing when I'm alone. Sometimes I see those silver eyes, in mirrors, in crowds, watching. The mall's still there, quiet, waiting. I fear it's not done with me, that one night those claws will find me, and Westfield will claim what it's owed. Campfires mask sinister whispers, the Ozark forest wrapped around us like a shroud, its pines clawing at the sky, their shadows swallowing the last light of day. Sarah and I had planned this camping trip for months, craving the kind of quiet you only get miles from civilization. Our tent sat in a clearing by a bubbling stream, the fire crackling as we roasted marshmallows, the stars brighter than any city could dream. I'm Alex, and I've always loved the outdoors, but that first night, as the firelight danced, a chill hit me, not from the crisp air, but a feeling, something watching, waiting in the dark. The stream's babble sounded wrong, like whispers weaving my name. Alex, here. We'd hiked deep into the Ozark National Forest, far from tourist trails, our packs loaded with gear, our phones useless with no signal. The first day was perfect. Lush trails, birdsong, the kind of peace that makes you forget the world. But by the second morning, the forest felt different, heavier, the air thick with a sour tang, not just earth, but something chemical, like paint thinner gone bad. Sarah noticed it too, her nose wrinkling as we packed for a ridge hike. "Smells weird," she said, scanning the trees, her voice tight. I shrugged it off, but my gut twisted, the pines seeming to lean closer, their bark scratched with faint spirals, jagged lines, like warnings carved in haste. We pushed on, following a game path, the trail markers gone, our map useless against the forest's maze. The chemical stench grew, the whispers louder now, not from the wind, but the trees themselves, low, guttural, urging us forward. "You hear that?" Sarah asked, stopping dead, her eyes wide. I strained, catching voices, rough, angry, not hikers, but something meaner, mixed with metal clanging, like tools on steel. My heart kicked up, the forest's hum vibrating in my chest, a chant I couldn't shake. "Alex, see." We crept forward, the trees parting to reveal a clearing, and I froze, pulling Sarah down behind a log. A ramshackle cabin sat in the center, surrounded by plastic jugs, tubing, propane tanks. A meth lab, no question. 3 men moved around it, their faces hard, eyes cold, one stirring a bubbling pot, another weighing white powder, the third clutching a rifle, scanning the trees. The chemical stink was choking now, mixed with rot, like something dead lingered. The cabin's walls were etched with symbols, same as the pines, glowing faintly green, pulsing in the dusk. "We gotta go," Sarah whispered, her voice shaking. but my pack snagged a branch, the snap echoing like a gunshot. Their heads whipped up, the rifleman's gaze locking on us. "Who's there?" he growled, raising the gun. "Run!" I hissed, grabbing Sarah's hand. We bolted, branches slashing our faces, the forest a blur of claws and shadows. Shouts erupted behind us, boots pounding, their flashlights slicing the dark. "Get 'em!" the leader roared, his voice like gravel, a shot cracking, splintering a tree inches from my head. My lungs burned, Sarah's breath ragged beside me, the symbols' glow chasing us, flaring on every trunk, their spirals twisting like eyes. The whispers swelled, not theirs, but the forest's, a chorus. "Alex, stay." I tripped, my hand grazing a stone, carved with the same symbols, warm, pulsing, flashing visions, hooded figures, blood on dirt, a fire that didn't burn right. I yanked my hand back, gasping, Sarah pulling me up. The men were close, their beams grazing our heels, but the forest fought too, roots snagging, paths vanishing, like it wanted us caught. A growl cut through, low, guttural, not from them but everywhere, vibrating the ground. The men's shouts faltered, one muttering, "What the hell's that?" I didn't look back, the hum deafening, the symbols' light blinding, guiding us deeper into the maze. We stumbled into a thicket, crouching, hearts slamming, their flashlights sweeping inches from our faces. The growl came again, closer, and I saw it. A shadow, too tall, too thin, moving wrong, its eyes glinting silver, not human. Sarah's fingers dug into my arm, her breath silent, the men's voices panicked now, not just hunting us, but running from something else. A scream tore through, raw, cut short, followed by a wet crunch. The whispers laughed, a chorus. "Alex, join." I grabbed Sarah, pulling her from the thicket, the forest a nightmare of glowing symbols and snapping branches. The ground dipped, and we tumbled down a slope, pain exploding in my ribs, landing hard by a stream, its water black, reflecting those silver eyes, not in the water, but behind us. We scrambled up, Sarah's face pale, my ribs screaming with every breath. The stream roared, its whispers louder, my name a chant. "Alex, feed." The men's flashlights were gone, their shouts silenced, but the growl rolled through the trees, closer, claws scraping bark. "We can't stay here," I gasped, pulling Sarah along, the forest a labyrinth, its pines bending like they were closing ranks. The symbols glowed everywhere, on rocks, roots, the air itself, their green light pulsing, the chemical stench now mixed with rot, like the forest was bleeding. A shot rang out, wild, desperate, then nothing, just the growl, hunting. We ran, branches whipping our faces, the ground trembling like something massive moved beneath it. Sarah stumbled, her ankle twisting, and I caught her, half carrying her through the underbrush. "It's not just them," she whispered, eyes wide. "Something's wrong with this place." I nodded, the visions flashing again. Blood, fire, symbols carved in flesh. The cabin wasn't just a lab, it was a shrine, something the men had woken, something older than the forest. Their screams echoed in my head, not chasing us anymore, but dying, taken by whatever stalked the dark. The forest tightened, paths vanishing, the symbols' glow a cage, guiding us back toward the clearing. I saw it through the trees, the cabin, its windows flickering with that sickly light, smoke curling from a smouldering pit, forming shapes, faces, claws, that vanished when I blinked. "No way we're going back there!" I hissed, veering toward a ridge, the growl inches behind, the shadow's silver eyes glinting in the dark. We climbed, Sarah's ankles slowing us, my hands scraping rock, the hum a roar now, the ground shaking, like the forest was waking. A cave-ook loomed ahead, the stream's torrent far below, too wide to cross, but the growl was on us, claws scraping closer. "Jump!" I shouted, gripping Sarah's hand. "We can't!" she cried, but a shot cracked, the bullet grazing my shoulder, blood hot on my skin. The leader was alive, his face bloodied, eyes wild, not aiming at us, but the shadow, its claws glinting. "On three!" I yelled, heart slamming. "1, 2, 3!" We leaped, the ground vanishing, the roar of water drowning the growl, our bodies suspended in the dark. We hit the other side, rolling, pain exploding in my shoulder, Sarah gasping beside me. The shadow's screech split the night, the leader's scream cut short, a wet crunch silencing him. We staggered into the trees, the cave-ook buying us time, the growl fading, the symbol's glow dimming. The forest loosened, paths opening, like it was letting us go, or done with us. Dawn broke, gold filtering through the pines, and we heard it, tires on gravel, a road ahead. We burst out, waving, a pickup truck screeching to a halt, an old farmer staring, shocked. "Help!" I gasped, collapsing against his door. He drove us to a police station, Sarah trembling beside me, my shoulder burning. I told them everything, camp, men, shadow, but their eyes said I was crazy. They found the cabin, empty, chemicals gone, just bones, too many, not all animal. The cops said the men must have fled, but I heard their screams, saw those silver eyes. We went home, swore off camping, but the hum follows me. Faint in my dreams, the symbols etched in my mind, a spiral on my wrist, warm, pulsing when I'm alone. Sometimes I hear it, a growl, not outside but inside, my name in its teeth. Alex. I keep my windows shut, my lights on, but it's no use. The Ozark's shadow clings, its secrets alive, waiting. I see those eyes in mirrors, in the dark, always watching. The forest's still out there, quiet, hungry. I fear one night I'll wake to find it standing over me, and the Ozark will claim what it's owed. Lonely highways cradle cursed travelers. The highway stretched like a black vein through the night, my truck's headlights barely cutting the dark, the rumble of the engine my only company. I'd been a long-haul trucker for 20 years, hauling loads from Chicago to Phoenix, my rig a second home. But that night, the road felt wrong, the air heavy with a sour tang, not just diesel, but something metallic, like blood baked into asphalt. My name's Jack, and I'm no saint, but picking up a stranger on that moonless stretch was a mistake that'd haunt me forever. The radio crackled, spitting static instead of the usual late-night talk, and I swear it whispered my name. Jack. Stop. I was past midnight, miles from anywhere, when I saw him, a lone figure on the shoulder, thumb out, duffel bag clutched tight. Hitchhikers are bad news, too many horror stories, but something about him made me slow down. Maybe it was the empty road, or the way he stood, like he was running from hell itself. I pulled over, air brakes hissing, and leaned to open the door. "Where you headed?" I asked, voice gruff. "West," he said, climbing in, his voice low, clipped. "Far as you're going." His name was Mike, early 30s, lean, with eyes that burned too bright, like they saw things I didn't. His bag hit the floor, and I caught a glint. Something metal, etched with spirals, glowing faintly, then gone. We drove in silence, the engine's drone swallowing the night, but the air in the cab was thick, the metallic tang sharper now, mixed with rot, like something dead rode with us. I tried small talk, where he from, what he did, but Mike's answers were short, his eyes flicking to the side mirrors, nervous like a hunted animal. "Just passing through," he muttered, his hand never leaving the bag. My gut twisted, years on the road, screaming trouble, but I kept driving, the highway endless, the stars hidden, the radio's static a low hum, chanting, "Jack, watch." An hour in, Mike got twitchy, checking the mirrors every second, his breath quickening. "Everything okay?" I asked, keeping it casual, but my hand inched toward the crowbar under my seat. "Fine," he snapped, too fast, his eyes darting to me, cold, calculating, like he was measuring my soul. The cab's dashboard flickered, the gauges glitching, needles spinning wild. I caught a mark on his wrist, a spiral, same as the bag's glint, glowing faintly green, pulsing like a heartbeat. "Not used to trucks this big," he said, forcing a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes, and the hum grew louder, not from the radio, but inside my head, whispering, "Jack, run." We hit a desolate stretch, no cars, no lights, just asphalt and dark. Mike's voice cut through, sharp. "Pull over." I glanced at him, heart kicking up, and froze. His hand held a gun, its barrel steady, aimed at my chest. "What the—" I started, but he cut me off. "Pull over now." My mind raced. Robbery, murder, my wife and kids flashing before me. "Look, man," I said, voice steady, "I got cash in my wallet." "Take it and go." He laughed, a harsh, hollow sound, his eyes glinting, not just fear, but something deeper, like he wasn't all human. "This ain't about money, Jack. It's about survival." "Pull over, or I paint this cab with your brains." I guided the rig to the shoulder, brakes hissing, my hands shaking but gripping the wheel tight. Mike moved fast, snatching the keys from the ignition, his gun never wavering. "Get out," he ordered, gesturing with the barrel. I climbed down, legs like jelly, the night air cold, the metallic stench choking, now mixed with rot, like the highway itself was decaying. "What do you want?" I asked, hating the tremble in my voice. "Your truck," Mike said, "and you to drive it." My heart sank. He wasn't letting me go. As I climbed back in, his gun at my back, I saw it, a symbol on the dashboard, scratched deep, glowing green, same as his wrist, pulsing with the hum, chanting, "Jack, drive." He directed me west, his eyes scanning the mirrors, the gun steady, but his hands shook, not from nerves but something else, like he was fighting himself. "Who are you running from?" I asked, voice low, testing him. He was quiet, then whispered, "Bad people. Ones who want me dead 'cause I know too much." My mind spun. Whistleblower, witness, cartel. The hum grew louder, the symbol's glow flaring, and I swear I saw shadows in the mirrors, not cars but things, too tall, too thin, their eyes glinting silver, watching. Mike saw it too, his breath hitching, his gun wavering, and I knew this wasn't just about him. I drove, the highway a black tunnel, Mike's gun a cold weight in my ribs, the hum a roar now, the symbol's green glow pulsing like a heartbeat. The metallic rot stench was everywhere, seeping from Mike's bag, from him, like he carried death itself. His eyes flicked to the mirrors, wild, muttering, "They're coming." I glanced at my rear view. A black SUV, sleek, gaining fast, its headlights wrong, too bright, like eyes. "Faster!" Mike snapped, his knuckles white on the gun. I floored it, the engine roaring, but the SUV was faster, pulling alongside, its window rolling down, a barrel glinting. "Get down!" Mike yelled as gunfire erupted, bullets pinging off the rig's metal, glass shattering. I ducked, the truck swerving, Mike leaning out, returning fire, the cab a deafening chaos of shots and screams. The SUV veered, its tires screeching, but kept pace, more bullets slamming the rig, one grazing my arm, blood hot on my skin. The hum was a scream now, the symbol blazing, visions flashing, hooded figures, blood on asphalt, a fire that didn't burn right. Mike's face among them, his eyes silver, not human. I shook it off, gripping the wheel, the SUV's headlights blinding, the shadow figures in the mirrors closer, their claws glinting. "There!" Mike shouted, pointing to a rest stop sign, its neon flickering like a dying star. I swerved, the rig swaying, tires burning as we skidded into the lot, dust choking the air. "Run!" Mike yelled, jumping out, firing at the SUV, its doors slamming, men in black spilling out, guns blazing. I bolted, legs pumping, the rest stopped deserted, the main building a dim beacon. Shots rang out, bullets kicking up dirt, Mike's screams mixing with the growl, not from the men, but the shadows, their silver eyes everywhere, moving wrong, hunting. I burst into the building, startling a sleepy clerk, my voice raw. "Call the cops! Men with guns!" He fumbled for the phone, but the door exploded open. 3 men charging in, their faces masked, guns raised. Mike shoved me behind a snack rack, opening fire, the air thick with gunpowder and potato chip shards. I crouched, heart slamming, the hum deafening, the symbols glowing on the walls, pulsing green, the shadows slipping through the chaos, their claws grazing the men, their screams not human but prey. The clerk screamed, ducking, and I saw it, a shadow, not Mike's, its eyes locking on me, whispering, "Jack, mine." The gunfire stopped, silence falling like a blade. I peered out. Mike stood, gun raised, the men down, blood pooling, but the shadows were gone, the symbols dim. Sirens wailed, red and blue lights flooding the lot. Mike turned to me, his face grim. "I'm sorry," he said, then bolted out the back, vanishing into the desert. I sat, frozen, the clerk babbling to 911, cops swarming, their questions a blur. They found the men dead, not just from bullets, but something else. Claws, deep, unnatural. Mike was gone, a ghost, later ID'd as a witness against a crime syndicate. But I knew he was more, tied to those symbols, those eyes. Cops cleared me, called it a botched hit. But the hum follows me, faint, in my dreams. The symbols etched in my mind, a spiral on my arm, warm, pulsing when I'm alone. I still drive, hauling loads across the country, but I'm careful now, mirrors covered, radio off. Sometimes I see those silver eyes, in headlights in the dark, watching. The highway's still out there, quiet, waiting. I don't pick up hitchhikers, but I fear one night I'll look over and see him. Mike, or what he became, sitting there, gun or claws, and the road will claim what it's owed. Broken cars lure shadowed predators. The highway was a black scar cutting through the night, my old sedan's headlights flickering like they knew they were on their last legs. I was driving back from a job interview in the next state, riding high on the hope of a new start, but the road had other plans. The moon was gone, the stars hidden, and the air carried a sour tang, not just exhaust, but something metallic, like rust mixed with blood. My name's Emily, and I've always prided myself on handling my own shit. But when my engine sputtered and died on that desolate stretch, a chill hit me, not from the cold, but a whisper, low and guttural, weaving through the wind. "Emily, stop." I coasted to the shoulder, the car lurching to a halt, the silence swallowing me whole. I turned the key, again and again, but the engine just groaned, dead. My phone was useless, no bars, the screen's glow mocking me in the dark. "Come on," I muttered, popping the hood, stepping into the night, the air biting my skin. I'm no mechanic, but I hoped for something simple, a loose wire, anything. But the engine was a maze of pipes and shadows, meaningless to me. The highway was empty, no cars, no lights, just the hum of the wind, or maybe not the wind. A low chant, my name in its teeth. Emily. Wait. I stood by the hood, heart kicking up, the metallic tang sharper now, mixed with rot, like something dead was close. My flashlight swept the road, catching glints on the asphalt, faint scratches, spirals and jagged lines, etched like someone had clawed them in a frenzy. My skin prickled, the darkness pressing in, and I swear I saw eyes, silver, glinting from the brush, gone when I blinked. Headlights pierced the night, a pickup truck slowing, its engine growling low. Relief hit, then dread, my gut screaming careful. The driver stepped out, a middle-aged guy, weathered face, flannel shirt, calloused hands, like a farmer or rancher. "Car trouble?" he called, voice gravelly, his smile not reaching his eyes. "Yeah," I said, keeping my voice steady, my hand in my pocket, gripping my keys like a weapon. "It just died. You know anything about engines?" He chuckled, stepping closer, his boots crunching on gravel. "Might know a thing or two. Mind if I take a look?" I nodded, stepping aside, but my eyes stayed on him, his movements too smooth, like a predator playing nice. He poked at the engine, humming thoughtfully, but his flashlight caught something, a mark on his wrist, a spiral, glowing faintly green, pulsing like a heartbeat. "Timing belt's shot," he said, straightening. "Can't fix it here." My stomach twisted, the hum louder now, not from the truck, but the air whispering, "Emily, run." "Got a phone I could borrow?" I asked, voice tight. "Mine's got no signal." He shook his head, that smile again, colder. "Don't believe in those things, but I can give you a ride to town. Mechanic, they'll help." Every instinct screamed no, but the highway was a void. No cars, no help. What choice did I have? "That'd be great," I said, grabbing my purse, my keys still clenched, ready. "Name's Tom," he said, opening the passenger door, his eyes glinting, not just from the headlights, but something deeper, something wrong. I climbed in, the cab reeking of that metallic rot, the dashboard scratched with symbols, same as the road, glowing faintly, pulsing with the hum. Tom kept up small talk, where I was from, where I was headed, but his voice was flat, his eyes flicking to me, measuring. The truck rumbled, but the road signs were wrong, no towns, just endless dark. "How far's town?" I asked, my hand on the door handle, testing it, locked. Tom glanced over, his smile gone, eyes cold as steel. "Not going to town, Emily," he said, voice low, the hum swelling, the cymbals flaring, a chant in my head. "Emily, stay." My blood froze, heart slamming, the truth hitting like a fist. He wasn't helping. He was hunting. "What do you mean?" I asked, voice shaking, fingers gripping the keys tighter. He pressed the gas, the truck speeding up, eating the road. "You'll see," he said, his wrists spiral, glowing brighter, the air thick with rot, like the cab was a grave. Panic clawed my throat, the whispers laughing now, not just in my head, but from him, his eyes glinting silver, not human. I fumbled the handle, child locked, trapped, the highway a blur, the symbols everywhere, pulsing, calling me to something I couldn't name. The truck roared, the highway a black tunnel. Tom's eyes fixed on the road, his spiral mark blazing, the hum a scream now, chanting, "Emily, join." The metallic rot stench was choking, seeping from the seat, from him, like he carried death in his bones. My mind raced. Fight, crash the truck, anything. But at this speed, we'd both die. "Please," I said, voice trembling, "just let me out. I won't tell anyone." Tom laughed, a harsh, hollow sound, his face twisting, not just a man but something else, his silver eyes glinting, reflecting not the dashboard but something older, hungrier. "No one ever does," he said, the words a blade, slicing hope. His hand moved to the glove box, revealing a knife, its blade etched with spirals, glowing green, pulsing with the hum. "You shouldn't trust strangers, Emily," he said, voice calm, like we were chatting about the weather. "Bad things happen to girls who ain't careful." Tears stung my eyes, but I forced them back, refusing to break. My keys were my only weapon, their jagged edge a frail shield. An idea hit, risky, maybe deadly, but my only shot. I started coughing, hard, doubling over, gasping, "Can't breathe!" Tom glanced over, his eyes narrowing, a flicker of doubt. "Cut that out," he snapped, but his voice wavered, the truck slowing. I slumped, coughing louder, wheezing, letting my body go limp, eyes half closed. "Hey, wake up!" he growled, leaning over, shaking my shoulder, the knife lowering. My chance. I snapped my eyes open, driving my keys into his face, the metal sinking into his cheek, blood hot on my hand. He howled, reeling back, the truck swerving, and I lunged for the keys in the ignition, yanking them free. His hand grabbed my hair, yanking hard, but I twisted, jamming my fingers into his eyes, digging deep, his scream raw, not human. I kicked the door, the lock giving way, and tumbled out, hitting the asphalt, pain exploding in my ribs. I scrambled up, running, the highway a blur, Tom's curses echoing, his footsteps stumbling in the dark. My legs burned, my lungs screamed, but I sprinted, the hum chasing me, the symbols glowing on the road, pulsing green, like the highway was alive. A growl cut through, low, guttural, not Tom's, but something else, its silver eyes glinting from the brush, moving with me, hunting. I didn't look back, the rot stench thick, the whispers laughing. "Emily, mine." Headlights pierced the dark, a gas station's neon sign glowing like salvation, its light cutting the night. I burst into the store, startling the clerk, a kid barely out of high school, his eyes wide. "Call the cops," I gasped, collapsing against the counter. "He's trying to kill me." He fumbled for the phone, dialing 911, his voice shaking as he described me, wild-eyed, bleeding, terrified. I locked the door, my hands trembling, the hum fading, the symbols gone, but those silver eyes lingered in my mind, watching from the dark. Cops screeched into the lot, their lights a lifeline, and I told them everything. Car, Tom, knife, blood. They found him hours later, his truck stalled, face torn, muttering about eyes in the dark. Evidence in the cab linked him to missing travelers, a string of graves along the highway. They called me lucky, patched my cuts, sent me home, but lucky doesn't feel right. I don't drive at night anymore, can't stand the hum of tires, the flicker of headlights. The symbols haunt me, etched in my dreams, a spiral on my palm, warm, pulsing when I'm alone. Sometimes I hear it, a growl, not outside, but inside, my name in its teeth. Emily. I keep my doors locked, my lights on, but it's no use. The highway's shadow clings, its secrets alive, waiting. I see those silver eyes, in mirrors, in the dark, watching. Not Tom's, but something else. Something that rode with him. The road's still out there, hungry, and I fear one night I'll wake to find it standing over me, claiming what it's owed. Abandoned factories guard deadly shadows. The Millbrook factory loomed like a rotting giant, its broken windows glaring down like empty eyes, rusted walls sagging under decades of neglect. Me and my crew, Tom, Sarah, Mike and Lizzie, slipped through the chain-link fence, our cameras ready, chasing the perfect shot for our urban exploration blog. Abandoned places are my thing, the way nature claws back what man leaves behind. But Millbrook felt different, its air heavy with a sour tang, not just rust, but something chemical, like death baked into the concrete. I'm Jake, and I live for the thrill of these ruins, but as we stepped inside, a chill hit me, not from the dusk, but a whisper, low and guttural, weaving through the shadows. Jake, come. The interior was a maze of crumbled machinery and shattered glass, dust choking the air, beams of fading sunlight slicing through holes in the roof. My flashlight swept the walls, catching glints, faint scratches, spirals and jagged lines, carved deep, glowing faintly green, like they were alive. Creepy as hell, Lizzie whispered, snapping pics, her camera's flash making the symbols flare, their light pulsing, almost breathing. Tom grinned, but his eyes were tight. That's the vibe, right? I nodded, but my gut twisted. The factory's hum, not just machinery, but a chant, my name in its rhythm. Jake. See? We split up to cover more ground, agreeing to meet back at the entrance in an hour. I headed deeper, my boots crunching on gravel, the air thicker, the chemical stench burning my nose, mixed with rot, like something had died and never left. The factory was a labyrinth, rusted conveyors, collapsed shelves, old offices with grimy windows reflecting my flashlight, and something else, a shadow, too tall, moving wrong. I froze, heart kicking up, but it was gone, just my reflection, warped, eyes glinting silver, not mine. Get it together, I muttered, but the whispers grew, not from my crew, but the walls, low, layered. Jake. Stay. I found an office area, papers strewn, desks overturned, the symbols everywhere now, pulsing faster, their green light casting twisted shadows. A shuffle broke the silence, too heavy for a rat coming from a corridor ahead. "Guys?" I called, voice small, echoing, unanswered. The shuffle stopped, then started again, deliberate, closer, followed by voices, rough, low, not my friends, but men, their words sharp, punctuated by metal clanging like tools on steel. My pulse roared, the chemical stink choking, and I crept toward a doorway, peering into the main floor. 3 men, scruffy, in dirty coats, stood around crates, passing packages, white powder, cash, a rifle leaning nearby. A drug deal right here in this dead place. Their faces were hard, eyes cold, one weighing powder, another counting bills, the third scanning the dark, his hand on a knife. The crates were etched with symbols, same as the walls, glowing green, pulsing like a heartbeat. The hum was deafening, the whispers a chorus. "Jake, watch!" I backed away, slow, careful, but my boot hit a pipe, the clang echoing like a gunshot. Their heads whipped up, the knife guy's gaze locking on me. "Who's there?" he growled, grabbing the rifle. I froze, heart slamming, their eyes boring into the dark, and I knew, if they found me, I was dead. "Check it!" the leader barked, a burly guy with a scarred face, his voice like gravel. The rifleman moved toward me, his flashlight slicing the shadows, inches from my face. Panic clawed my chest, the symbols flaring, the hum a roar, and I bolted, crashing through the office. Papers flying, my camera swinging wild. Shouts erupted behind me, boots pounding. "Get him!" I sprinted, the factory a blur of rusted steel and glowing symbols, their light guiding me, trapping me. A shot rang out, the bullet grazing a pipe, steam hissing, scalding my arm. I dove behind a conveyor, heart hammering, their beams sweeping, but something else moved, a shadow. Too thin, its silver eyes glinting, not theirs, watching me. The whispers laughed, a chorus. "Jake, run!" I scrambled up, running blind, the factory a maze, doors locked, paths dead-ending. My crew was out there, scattered, and I had to find them, warn them. I rounded a corner, slamming into Tom, both of us sprawling. "Jake, what the hell?" he groaned, rubbing his head. "No time," I gasped, pulling him up. "Drug deal, guys with guns." His eyes widened, the hum louder, the symbols everywhere, pulsing, the shadows growl rolling through the walls, not from the men, but something older, hungrier. We ran, Tom's breath ragged, the factory's shadows twisting, the symbol's green glow, a cage, pulsing with the growl, low, guttural, vibrating the floor. "Where's Sarah?" I hissed, dodging a rusted beam, the chemical stench choking, now mixed with rot, like the factory was bleeding. "Down there," Tom pointed, his flashlight shaking, catching more symbols, their spirals crawling like veins. We found Sarah, her face pale, camera clutched tight. "What's happening?" she whispered, but a scream cut through, Lizzie's, raw, terrified, from a nearby room. My heart sank, the men's shouts closer, their flashlights slashing the dark, but the growl was louder, not theirs, something else. Hunting. We sprinted toward Lizzie's scream, caution gone, bursting into a large room. Lizzie was backed into a corner, a man advancing, his knife glinting, Mike crumpled on the floor, blood on his temple. Without thinking, I grabbed a rusted pipe, charging, swinging hard, catching the man's shoulder. He went down, yelling, and I shouted, "Run!" Lizzie bolted, Tom checking Mike. "He's breathing!" The man staggered up, murder in his eyes, but two more entered, their guns raised. "Wrong place, kids," the leader growled, his scarred face lit by the symbol's glow, pulsing faster, the hum a roar, the shadow's silver eyes glinting behind him, not attacking but watching, waiting. The room was a trap, the only exit blocked, the symbols everywhere, on walls, crates, the floor, their light blinding, the growl vibrating my bones. "The conveyor!" I hissed, spotting a rusted belt leading to an upper level. Tom nodded, hauling Mike, and we scrambled up, the sharp metal cutting our hands, Sarah and Lizzie right behind. The men shouted, their shots ringing out, bullets pinging off steel, one grazing my leg, blood hot on my skin. The conveyor shook, groaning under our weight, the factory trembling like it was waking, hungry. We reached the upper level, a maze of catwalks, The floor below a sea of shadows and glowing symbols, the men climbing after us. But the growl was closer, claws scraping steel, not theirs but its. "Over there!" I yelled, spotting a faded exit sign, a door at the far end. We ran, the catwalk swaying, the whole structure creaking, threatening to collapse. A shot cracked, the bullet sparking off a railing, the leader's voice roar, "You're dead!" But another scream cut through, not ours, one of theirs, raw, cut short, a wet crunch echoing. The shadow was moving, not with us, but them, its silver eyes glinting, its growl a chant, "Jake, feed!" We hit the door, yanking it open, revealing a rusted fire escape, its steps sagging, but our only shot. We descended, half falling, the metal clanging, the factory's hum deafening, the symbols' glow chasing us, pulsing like a heartbeat. Another shot rang out, but it was wild, the men's shouts panicked, not chasing but dying, taken by something else. We hit the ground, sprinting through the overgrown lot, the factory looming behind, its windows glinting like eyes. Tom's car was blocks away, and we piled in, Mike groaning, conscious now, Sarah sobbing, Lizzie pale. Tom floored it, tires screeching, the factory shrinking in the rear view, but the hum followed, faint, whispering, "Jake, always." We didn't go to the cops, fear of retaliation too real, their connections unknown. We made a pact, never speak of it, never go back. But the factory's shadow clings, its symbols etched in my dreams, a spiral on my palm, warm, pulsing when I'm alone. We quit exploring, the thrill gone, replaced by dread. Sometimes I hear it, a growl, not outside but inside, my name in its teeth. Jake. I keep my doors locked, my lights on, but it's no use. Millbrook's still there, rotting, waiting, its hunger alive. I see those silver eyes, in mirrors in the dark, watching, not the men, but something older, something the factory feeds. I fear one night I'll wake to find it standing over me, and Millbrook will claim what it's owed. Quiet homes hide digital predators. The Johnson house was a cozy bubble, its living room glowing with the soft flicker of the TV, the kind of place that screamed normal. I'd been babysitting their kid, Timmy, for 6 months, a gig to pay for college textbooks, and it was usually a breeze. Pizza, games, bedtime by 9. But that night, the air felt wrong, heavy with a sour tang, not just the usual suburban scent, but something metallic like rust creeping through the vents. I'm Amy, and I'm good at keeping things chill, but as I scrolled my phone on the couch, a chill hit me. Not from the AC, but a whisper, low and guttural, drifting from the dark. Amy. Look. Timmy, an 8-year-old bundle of energy, was in his pajamas, showing off his latest Lego spaceship, chattering about school. I nodded, half listening, but his words slowed, his eyes flicking to the tablet on the counter. "Everything okay, buddy?" I asked, catching a shadow in his gaze, like he was hiding something. He hesitated, then mumbled, "Is it okay to have secret friends?" My gut twisted. Alarm bells ringing, the metallic tang sharper now, mixed with rot, like something dead lingered nearby. "What kind of secret friends, Timmy?" I pressed, keeping my voice light, but he clammed up, rolling over. "Never mind. Night, Amy." I tucked him in, his room a fortress of toys and glow-in-the-dark stars, but the house felt too quiet. The TV's hum, not just static, but a chant, my name woven in. Amy. C. Back downstairs, I grabbed Timmy's tablet, parental controls on, supposed to be safe, games, kid apps, nothing weird. But an icon caught my eye. A puzzle game with interlocking blocks, harmless looking except it glowed faintly green, pulsing like a heartbeat. I opened it, heart kicking up, and found no game. Just a messaging app, a chat history with someone called Game Master Mike. My hands shook as I scrolled, the words chilling. "Keep it secret, Timmy. Don't tell your babysitter." "I'm coming tonight. It'll be fun." The screen flickered, the symbols from the app, spirals, jagged lines, crawling across it, glowing brighter, the hum louder, whispering, "Amy, no." I dropped the tablet, heart slamming, the room darkening, the TV's glow warping, reflecting not my face but eyes, silver, glinting, gone when I blinked. A ping broke the silence, my phone lighting up. An unknown number. "Timmy's asleep, Amy." "Let me in." My blood froze, the metallic rot stench choking, the house no longer cozy but a trap. I ran to the windows, checking locks, curtains drawn, but the dark outside pressed in, those silver eyes watching from the yard, not moving, waiting. I grabbed my phone to call 911, but the hum swelled, the tablet screen flaring, Mike's messages scrolling on their own. "I'm here." "Open the door!" Panic clawed my throat, the whispers laughing now, not from the tablet, but the walls, the air, chanting, "Amy, open!" I crept upstairs, wincing at every creak, and shook Timmy awake. "We're playing hide and seek," I whispered, voice trembling, "but you gotta be super quiet, okay?" His eyes were wide, sensing my fear, and I led him to his parents' walk-in closet, pushing aside clothes to hide him in the back. "Stay here, no matter what you hear," I said, closing the door, my heart breaking at his scared nod. Downstairs, I grabbed a kitchen knife, its weight awkward, but better than nothing, the blade catching the TV's light, reflecting those symbols, glowing green, pulsing like veins. The metallic stench was everywhere, the hum a roar, and a noise came, the patio door sliding open, slow, deliberate. He was inside. Footsteps echoed, heavy, measured, not rushing, but savoring, a predator in my space. "Timmy," a man's voice called, soft, mocking. "It's Game Master Mike. Come play." My breath hitched, the knife trembling in my hand, the whispers a chorus, "Amy, fight." I pressed against the kitchen wall, heart slamming, the shadow of his frame filling the doorway, his silver eyes glinting, not just a man, but something else, something wrong. I gripped the knife tighter, the symbols flaring on the walls, the TV screen warping, showing not the news but a fire, blood, hooded figures chanting around a spiral. The man stepped closer, his face clear now, scruffy beard, wild eyes, nothing like the friendly persona he'd spun online. "Where's the kid?" he growled, his knife glinting, etched with the same symbols, glowing, pulsing. I swung my blade, not thinking, aiming for his arm, the metal biting flesh, his yell raw, not human. He stumbled back, clutching the wound, blood dripping, but his eyes burned silver, the growl not from him, but the house, vibrating the floor, hungry. He lunged, faster than I expected, his knife slashing, missing my throat by inches, the air thick with rot, the symbols blazing, the hum a scream. "Amy, mine." I dodged, the knife hitting the counter, sparking, his strength overwhelming, his hand grabbing my wrist, twisting until my blade clattered to the floor. "Where's Timmy?" he snarled, slamming me against the wall, the wind knocked out of me, his fingers closing on my throat, the silver eyes not his, but something else, something riding him. Black spots danced in my vision, the whispers laughing, the house shaking like it was waking, feeding on my fear. Then sirens, faint but growing, red and blue lights flashing through the curtains. His grip loosened, shock flickering in his eyes, the growl louder, not from him but the shadows, claws glinting behind him, silver eyes locking on me, not attacking, but watching, waiting. I kneed him hard, catching his groin, his grunt roar as he doubled over. I shoved past, sprinting for the front door, yanking it open as cop cars screeched into the driveway. "Help!" I screamed, collapsing on the porch, officers swarming, guns drawn, their shouts a blur. "Freeze!" They tackled him, Gerald Hoffman, they'd later say, trying to flee out the back, his face blooded, muttering about eyes in the walls. Timmy was safe, curled in the closet, scared but unharmed, his parents rushing home to a nightmare of police lights and ambulances. A neighbor had seen a man lurking, called 911, saving us by minutes. Cops found his car, packed with evidence, photos, knives, ropes, linking him to missing kids across the state. They called me a hero, patched my bruises, but hero doesn't fit. I felt violated, angry, the hum still in my ears, the symbols etched in my mind, a spiral on my wrist, warm, pulsing when I'm alone. I quit babysitting, couldn't face those quiet houses, the flicker of screens. I volunteer now, teaching kids online safety, hoping to stop another Mike from reaching another Timmy. But the house's shadow clings, its whispers in my dreams, the TV screen showing not news, but fire, blood, those silver eyes watching. I keep my devices locked, my curtains drawn, but it's no use. Sometimes I hear it, a growl, not outside but inside, my name in its teeth. Amy. I see those eyes, in mirrors, in the dark, not Hoffman's but something else, something that used him, that knows me now. The Johnson house is still there, normal, cozy, but I'll never go back. Cops never found the tablet's app, its icon gone, like it never existed, but I know what I saw, what I felt. Hoffman's in prison, but I wonder, was he alone? Or was something guiding him, feeding through that screen? The internet's still out there, quiet, waiting, its shadows alive. I fear one night I'll wake to a ping, a message from no one, and those silver eyes will be there, claiming what they're owed. Wild trails conceal cursed shadows. The Ozark forest swallowed us whole, its pines looming like silent sentinels, their branches clawing at the fading sun. Jake, Sarah, and I had set out for a weekend hike, craving the raw freedom of the wilderness, our packs heavy with gear, the trail a winding promise of adventure. I'm Alex, and I've always found peace in these woods, but that first day, as we trekked deeper, a chill hit me. Not from the crisp air, but a whisper, low and guttural, weaving through the trees. Alex, come. The forest felt alive, its shadows too sharp, its silence too heavy, like it was holding its breath, watching. We'd chosen a trail off the beaten path, recommended by a local guide for its challenge, but by noon the markers faded, the path blurring into a maze of roots and needles. The air grew thick, tinged with a sour tang, not just moss, but something chemical, like paint thinner gone rancid. "Smell that?" Sarah asked, her nose wrinkling, her eyes scanning the pines. Jake shrugged, adjusting his pack, but I caught his glance, uneasy, the same feeling gnawing at me. The trees were marked, faint scratches, spirals and jagged lines, carved deep, glowing faintly green, like they'd been waiting for us. My GPS flickered, screen glitching, coordinates spinning wild. "Piece of junk," I muttered, but my gut screamed the forest wasn't just vast, it was guiding us somewhere wrong. We pushed on, following a game path, the chemical stench growing, the whispers louder, not from the wind, but the ground, a chant vibrating in my chest. "Alex, see." Jake stopped, pointing to a clearing ahead, his voice low. "Voices." We crouched behind a fallen log, hearts kicking up, and peered out. A dilapidated cabin sat in the center, surrounded by plastic jugs, tubing, propane tanks. A meth lab, no question. 3 men moved around it, their faces hard, eyes cold, one stirring a bubbling pot, another weighing white powder, the third clutching a rifle, scanning the trees. The cabin's walls were etched with symbols, same as the pines, pulsing green like a heartbeat, the stench choking, mixed with rot, like something dead lingered. "Gotta get out," I whispered, but Sarah's pack snagged a branch, the snap echoing like a gunshot. Their heads whipped up, the rifleman's gaze locking on us. "Who's there?" he growled, raising the gun, its barrel glinting. Jake's breath hitched, and then, "Fuck," he sneezed, the sound a death knell in the quiet. "Someone's out there!" the leader roared, a burly guy with a scarred face, his voice like gravel. Panic clawed my chest, the cymbals flaring, the hum a roar, and I hissed, "Run!" We bolted, branches slashing our faces, the forest a blur of claws and shadows, their shouts erupting, boots pounding, a shot cracking, splintering a tree inches from my head. My lungs burned, Sarah's breath ragged beside me, Jake ahead, the symbols glow chasing us, pulsing on every trunk, their spirals twisting like eyes. The whispers swelled, a chorus. "Alex, stay." I tripped, my hand grazing a stone, carved with the same symbols, warm, pulsing, flashing visions, hooded figures, blood on bark, a fire that didn't burn right, faces not human, but hungry. I yanked my hand back, gasping, Sarah pulling me up, the men's flashlights grazing our heels, their voices snarling, "Get 'em!" The forest fought us, roots snagging, paths vanishing like it wanted us caught. A growl cut through, low, guttural, not from the men but the trees, vibrating the ground. Their shouts faltered, one muttering, "What's that?" I glanced back. A shadow, too tall, too thin, moving wrong, its silver eyes glinting, not human, watching. "Split up!" I yelled, hoping to confuse them, veering left as Jake and Sarah went right. The forest tightened, the symbols everywhere, the hum deafening, the growl closer, claws scraping bark. I dove behind a boulder, heart slamming, their beams sweeping inches from my face. But the shadow was there, not with them but me, its whisper clear. "Alex, hide." I ran, the forest a nightmare, the chemical stench choking, the symbols light a cage guiding me deeper. A cave loomed, half hidden by vines, and I dove inside, the darkness swallowing me, the hum a roar, the symbols glowing on the walls, pulsing like veins. I pressed against the back, breath ragged, the men's shouts fading, their flashlights gone, but the growl was closer, claws scraping the entrance, the silver eyes glinting, not attacking, but waiting, hungry. The cave was a shallow overhang, its walls slick with damp, the symbols blazing, their green light pulsing, the hum a scream. "Alex, mine." My heart hammered, the chemical rot stench thick, the the growl vibrating my bones, not from the men, but the forest, its hunger alive in the dark. Footsteps crunched outside, heavy, deliberate, the leader's voice snarling, "He's here somewhere." I held my breath, muscles locked, the silver eyes glinting at the cave's mouth, not moving but watching, its claws scraping stone, a chant in my head, "Alex, join." A flashlight beam swept the entrance, inches from my face, then moved on, the men's voices fading, but the growl stayed, closer, its shadow stretching, too long, too thin, like it owned the night. I waited, lungs burning, until the footsteps were gone, the hum softening, the cymbals dimming, but the eyes lingered, silver, unblinking, whispering, "Alex, soon." I eased out, the forest dark now, the pines casting shadows that moved wrong, the chemical stench clinging, the ground trembling, like something massive stirred beneath. My ankle throbbed from the fall, my hands cut from branches, but I moved, picking a direction, the whispers guiding or trapping I couldn't tell. The trees were denser, the cymbals faint but pulsing, the rot smell thicker, like the forest was rotting from within. A stream's babble broke the silence, hope surging. Water meant a way out. I followed it, limping, the hum faint but persistent, the cymbals glowing on rocks, their spirals crawling like veins. I froze. Sarah, her face pale, emerged from the underbrush, stifling a scream as we collided, then hugging me tight. "Oh my God, Alex," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "I thought you were gone." Jake was out, she said, finding a road, getting help. We moved, the stream our guide, the forest loosening, paths opening, like it was letting us go, or done with us. The growl faded, but the silver eyes lingered in my mind, watching from the dark. Dawn broke, gold filtering through the pines, and we heard it. Tires on gravel, a road ahead. We burst out, waving, police cars screeching to a halt, Jake's voice shouting, "They're here!" He'd reached a town, called the cops, who'd been searching all night. They took our statements, found the cabin, empty, chemicals gone, just bones. Too many, not all animal. The men were caught days later, fleeing the state, their meth lab busted. But I heard their screams, saw those eyes. The cops called it a win, but I knew the forest had taken something or someone else. We went home, swore off hiking, but the hum follows me, faint in my dreams, the symbols etched in my mind, a spiral on my palm, warm, pulsing when I'm alone. I don't trust the woods anymore, can't shake the feeling they're alive, hungry. Sometimes I hear it. A growl, not outside but inside, my name in its teeth, Alex. I keep my windows shut, my lights on, but it's no use. The Ozark's shadow clings, its secrets alive, waiting. I see those silver eyes, in mirrors, in the dark, watching, not the men, but something older, something the forest feeds. I fear one night I'll wake to find it standing over me, and the Ozark will claim what it's owed. Ancient woods cradle unseen hunters. The Pacific Northwest forest was a cathedral of shadow, its ancient pines towering like guardians, their needles swallowing the last light of day. I'd come here chasing rumors of an undocumented creature, a beast from local tribal tales, furry, bipedal, with eyes that burned in the dark. As a wildlife photographer, I'd tracked leopards in the Himalayas, jaguars in the Amazon, but this felt different, the air thick with a sour tang, not just moss, but something metallic, like blood baked into the earth. I'm Jack, and I live for the hunt, But as I set up my camera traps in a clearing, a chill hit me, not from the dusk, but a whisper, low and guttural, weaving through the trees. "Jack, look." 5 days in, I'd seen nothing but deer and bears, my traps empty, the forest too quiet, its silence a weight on my chest. My base camp was a small tent, my gear spread out, but the woods felt alive, watching, waiting. The pines were marked, faint scratches, spirals and jagged lines, carved deep, glowing faintly green, like they'd been etched by something not human. My GPS glitched, screen flickering, coordinates spinning wild, and my compass needle danced, pointing nowhere. "Just the terrain," I muttered. But my gut screamed. The forest wasn't just vast, it was guiding me somewhere wrong. Its hum not natural, but a chant, my name in its rhythm. Jack, find. I perched in a tree blind that evening, my camera ready, watching a clearing where I'd found tracks, too large, too human, but clawed, unnatural. The light was fading, the air colder, the metallic tang sharper, mixed with rot, like something dead lingered nearby. A low growl broke the silence, not bear or wolf, but something else, vibrating in my chest, coming from everywhere and nowhere. My heart kicked up, but years of tracking kept me still, my telephoto lens scanning the tree line. Then I saw them. 2 eyes, silver, not reflecting, but glowing, set in a face almost human, covered in matted fur, its gaze piercing, intelligent, wrong. I snapped shots, the camera's shutter loud in the hush, the flash flaring, and the creature froze, its eyes locking on me, the growl deepening, a chant now. "Jack, see." The symbols on the trees flared, their green light pulsing, the forest trembling like it was waking. I lowered the camera, hands shaking, and it was gone. But its presence lingered, heavy, hungry, the air thick with that rot stench. My photos blurred, useless, except one. Clear, too clear, the creature's face sharp, its silver eyes burning. Not animal, but something older, something that knew me. The hum roared, the whispers swelling, not from the clearing, but my head urging, "Jack, run." I packed my gear, heart slamming, the forest silence deafening, every rustle a threat. The growl came again, closer, claws scraping bark, the symbols glowing everywhere, on rocks, roots, the air itself, their spirals twisting like eyes. I scrambled down the tree, my boots slipping, the darkness closing in, the rot stench choking, the hum a scream. "Jack, stay." I ran, no plan, just instinct, crashing through underbrush, branches whipping my face, roots snagging my feet. The creature's steps were silent, but I felt it, its silver eyes boring into my back, toying with me, letting me think I could escape. A shot rang out, not a gun, but a crack, like stone splitting, the ground trembling, the symbols flaring, blinding. I tripped, sprawling over a root, my hand grazing a stone, carved with the same spirals, warm, pulsing, flashing visions, hooded figures, blood on moss, a fire that didn't burn right. The creature's face among them, its eyes silver, not animal, but God. I yanked my hand back, gasping, the growl inches away, the forest a blur of claws and shadows. I dove behind a fallen log, heart hammering, the creature's steps pausing, its breath hot, not panting but chanting, my name in its teeth. "Jack, Mine. The forest tightened, paths vanishing. The symbols glow a cage, guiding me deeper. A river's roar broke through, hope surging. Water could hide my scent, break its trail. I sprinted, the growl following, claws scraping, the silver eyes glinting through the trees, not rushing but savouring, a hunter with no need to hurry. The river loomed, wide, fast, its black water reflecting those eyes, not in the river, but behind me, always behind. I didn't think. I jumped, the icy shock stealing my breath, the current dragging me, my camera bag a dead weight, pulling me down. The river's cold was a knife cutting my lungs, the current a beast tugging me under, but I fought, kicking for the surface, gasping as I broke free. The growl echoed, not drowned by the water, vibrating the air, the symbols glowing on the banks, their green light pulsing, the hum a roar. Jack, stay. My feet found the far bank, and I dragged myself out, soaked, shivering, the rot stench thick, the forest darker, its pines bending like they were closing ranks. The creature's eyes glinted across the river, silver, unblinking, but it didn't follow, just watched, its growl a chant. Jack. Soon. I ran, legs like lead, the forest a labyrinth, the symbols everywhere, on trees, stones, the ground, their light a trap, guiding me back to nowhere. My ankle throbbed, my hands cut, but fear was fuel, pushing me through the underbrush, the hum deafening, the whispers laughing, not from the creature, but the forest itself, hungry, alive. A shot cracked. Not a gun, but stone again. The ground trembling like something massive stirred beneath, waking with my steps. I stumbled into a hollow log, its interior damp, crawling inside, curling tight, the symbols glowing on the wood, pulsing like veins. The growl closer, claws scraping outside, the silver eyes peering in, not attacking but waiting, savouring. I held my breath, heart slamming, the hum a scream, the visions flashing, blood, fire, the creature not alone but many, their eyes silver, chanting in a circle, my face among them marked. The claws scraped, slow, deliberate, the log trembling, the rot stench choking, like the forest was rotting from within. Then silence, the growl fading, the eyes gone, the symbols dimming, but the hum lingered, whispering, Jack, always. I waited, lungs burning, until dawn's gold filtered through the gaps, the forest quieter, less alive, like it had fed and was sated, for now. I crawled out, the air cold, the symbols faint but pulsing, the rot stench clinging. My GPS was dead, but I moved, limping, the forest loosening, paths opening, like it was letting me go, or done with me. 5 miles later, I stumbled into my camp, my tent untouched, my gear scattered, the forest silent, watching. I packed fast, hands shaking, the photos in my camera a weight I couldn't shake. One clear shot, the creature's face, its silver eyes burning, not animal, but God, not alone, but legion. I drove out, tires kicking dust, the forest a green blur in my rear view, but its shadow clung, the hum faint, whispering, Jack, home. I called my editor, voice hoarse. You won't believe what I got. The photo caused a storm, scientists, cryptozoologists, nuts flooding the forest, but they found nothing, no tracks, no creature, just whispers of my hallucination. I didn't go back, couldn't. The forest's eyes in my dreams, the symbols etched in my mind, a spiral on my palm, warm, pulsing when I'm alone. I don't shoot wildlife anymore, can't face the dark, the quiet. Sometimes I hear it, a growl, not outside but inside, my name in its teeth, Jack. I keep my doors locked, my lights on, but it's no use. The forest's shadow clings, its hunger alive, waiting. I see those silver eyes, in mirrors, in the dark, not one but many, watching, waiting for the night I step too close, and the forest claims what it's owed.